Hey y'all. I hope you guys aren't panicking too much and you're staying safe in this time, that's a difficult time right now with schooling and a lot of uncertainty. I wanted to bring your attention, if you haven't heard already, the College Board's update to the AP exams for this year, and an amazing it's an amazing change. It's a huge change for all of your AP exams. And I think it's the best they can do. I don't think it's a perfect solution, but I think in light of the so many schools being shut down and people not being able to get to their classes and get their right amount of instruction, this is kind of what they've done. So this is today, March 20th, 2020. The biggest change is that traditional face-to-face exam administrations will not take place. Students will take a 45-minute online free response exam at home. That's huge. No multiple choice. Only 45-minute free response questions. Some students may want to take the exam sooner rather than later while the content is still fresh. Other students may want more time to practice. For each AP subject, there will be 2 different testing dates. So you will be taking this at home, okay? They actually indicate somewhere in here about it will be a 45-minute online free response exam at home. They're still selecting which questions to do. The AP curricula are locally developed. We defer, let me see, blah, 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 ensuring students will be able to take these streamlined exams on any device they have access to, computer, tablet, or smartphone. Taking a photo of handwritten work will also be an option. Okay, so the big thing is that, like, no more multiple choice section. Free response, 45 minutes. And I'm going to break down what that means for each test. But that's a huge change to the normal format of the exam. They've also indicated, which they'll see, in terms of cheating, is they say exam questions are designed to prevent cheating, which I'll get into in a little bit about, like, what that means. And scoring, and additionally, I forget where they said this, they're just saying that the exam, it's going to be a limited, they're going to exclude certain topics, and they go through with each exam which topics they're excluding. So the AP exam will not have the full normal curriculum as required, and I'm going to go into, for each of the AP exams that I make videos for or that I tutor, what that breakdown looks like. But let's talk about the changes in principle for a second. So you might ask, why not have multiple choice questions? And I don't have any official answers for you, so I don't know the exact answers, but here's my speculation. One, they're worried about cheating, and multiple choice tests are extremely easy to cheat on. They're easy to spread answers, send answers, because you don't have to show any work. You just need to get the answer right or wrong. Extremely easy to cheat and spread answers, and there's no way that the College Board will be able to detect that. Free response or essays are much harder, or a little bit harder, to cheat on, especially when you're writing essays for, like, U.S. history or some of the AP English exams. It's going to be very obvious if you've copied your wording identical to someone else's. Like, they can compare and see, like, are there students cheating off one another? Okay, that's probably one big reason. That's also why I think the exam is only 45 minutes. See, if they made it a full, like, 3-hour or just made it a long free response, that gives you more time to, like, split up the answers, tweak your essays, whatever. 45 minutes is enough time to really do the question, but not enough time, or at least it would be tight on time, to really share answers and try to cheat the system or have someone else do them for you. So that's why I think they've made this decision to go with the 45-minute free response questions. Now, note that for most of the exams that I cover, 45 minutes is not just one question. So it's not going to be one question, or maybe it would be an elaborate question, but it's definitely going to have multiple parts. So what are the pros and cons of this new change? Well, I'm always a fan of the free response questions. I think it demonstrates more knowledge. You get better chance of partial credit rather than just simply a binary right or wrong. That's just my personal preference, and how most universities will test you is on free response and showing your work and making sure you understand the material, rather than just getting credit by guessing correctly, for example, or process of elimination. The other thing I would say is that, like, this puts a lot of pressure on these questions. So you might think like, hey, they're cutting the material, I don't need to know as much, I have fewer questions. But that means that like your grade is based on just this free response questions or whatever here, and that may or may not be good for you depending how strong you are. I sometimes have never really worried about the onesie twosie points that you get wrong if you make a mistake here, because I know that overall, on average, if you know the material, you'll do well enough. But here, each individual point is going to make a much, much bigger difference to your score. So it's going to be important to really, really, really be precise on the material. And also the questions may be a little harder on the material. Since they're cutting out some material, they may be a little tougher on the existing material you're supposed to know. So where in the past exams, maybe you got away with not knowing your kinematics very well because the free response questions for the physics exam didn't really do much kinematics, you can expect there to be more kinematics or more emphasis on material that might have just gotten dropped because there's so much material. So I think those are some of the decisions that went into making these changes. Now, I do not recommend cheating whatsoever, and I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Suppose you want to hire someone to do the test for you. Well, 45 minutes is a tight time period. You got to be really, really on top of your material. And the tutor or person you hire has to be really trustworthy if they're going to cheat for you. I know tutors who turn people in for even requesting cheating services to take exams. I know that they can figure out which school, university, or high school you're attempting to ask for cheating from, and they will email your teachers. And getting a penalty like that is far worse than just getting a poor score in an AP exam. You can get penalized in a lot of ways. It can invalidate all of your AP exam scores. Who knows what kind of punitive things they may do. So first of all, so that might be that way. Or a tutor might decide to just say like, hey, to teach you a lesson, give you all the wrong answers on that minute. And it's not like you're going to have a lot of time to really do that. I don't think most of you who are watching my channel are about cheating, but there are going to be friends, there are going to be people around you who are going to be looking for ways to do cheating. And I strongly urge you to not do that. The other reason is not just ethically or morally or just that you'll be punished. It's just that if you want to be good at this material, if you want to proceed on and get college credit for this, you're going to be expected to know this material for future classes. So it's not just like you can just like drop it and be like, well, I got through it, I got my college credit. You'll be expected to know some of this material or have an understanding of this material. So say you go into the second semester of calculus after you take calculus AB. Well, if you cheated on the exam and you don't really understand the material, you're going to be finding that you're really in trouble. So for all of those reasons, I really, really discourage you from trying to cheat, even though that might seem like an easy way out given that they're going to be doing this, okay? Keep in mind, they will be comparing your answers against other students, and if you and someone else are putting like too much identical on every single thing, like it will be flagged. Maybe you make even the same mistakes. You will get flagged for plagiarism, basically. So I really would encourage you guys. So let's get down to maybe the meat and potatoes of what it is they're dropping on the AP exams, because I think that's super important to understand. They are dropping some material from the AP exam. So that's what they said here. To be fair to all students, some who have lost more instructional time than others, the exam will only include topics and skills most AP teachers and students have already covered in class by early March. What does that mean specifically? Well, I broke it out from here. So let's talk about, so they have these on a table. I sort of broke out the calculus, physics, physics C, statistics. Those are kind of my topics that are, but if you want to look at other AP exam questions, you can go to the College Board website and look at the entire table. I'll put a link in the description below where all this information can be found. So let's look at calculus. AB will cover units 1 through 7, will not cover unit 8. So what is unit 8 for calculus AB? That is applications of integration. That's going to include things like average value, volumes of revolution, area between two curves. You will not have to do any of those. So for some of you, maybe the hardest one are the volumes of revolution, but you will not need to know to do any of those for the exam. They will be dropping that. You will still need to know everything up unit 1 through unit 7. For calculus BC, they're dropping unit 9 and 10, except for 10.2, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. So let's talk about like what on the BC exam, what that looks like. Unit 9, they're completely eliminating. So let me mark this out so we can see. So these guys are dropping. They're dropping Unit 9. That means you do not need to know parametric, polar curves, vector valued functions. All of that is a BC only topic. They are being dropped. You still need to know these Unit 8 units that the AB students do not need to know, but you still need to know them for the BC exam. They're also eliminating a lot of Unit 10, so except for 10.2. So no 10.1. You don't need to know convergent, divergent series limits. You do need to know geometric series. You do not need to know the nth term test for divergence, the integral test for convergence. I can hear the sigh of relief that some of you guys are doing that you really don't need to know. You are still going to need to know harmonic series and P series, but not the comparison test. You do need to know the alternating series test and the ratio test, but you do not need to know absolute or conditional convergence, the alternating series error bound. You will need to know how to do Taylor polynomials approximating functions, but you won't need to know Lagrange error bound, radius and interval of convergence of power series, finding Taylor-Maclaurin series, or representing functions as power series. So that's a huge chunk, and I would say the tests of convergence and divergence are usually like one of the areas that I find most people find difficult. A lot of that is being stricken from the BC exam, so that's a pretty huge change. Let's go down to Physics 1. So Physics 1, they're dropping units 8 through 10, and then Physics 2, 6 through 7. So what are they dropping for Physics 1? They are dropping all of the electricity units, 8 and 9. Electric charge, force, DC circuits. They're also dropping mechanical waves and sound. So that's a huge backhorse. I think this makes the most sense. These are the least related to these. So the test, I think, is going to be a little bit harder because these are sort of like a little bit straightforward and isolated. You know to apply them because they're very distinct from these, where these are all kind of interrelated and probably the harder part of AP Physics 1. So I don't think that test got any easier for you, honestly. I think if anything, it got a little bit harder because these units are so interconnected. For AP Physics 2, they're dropping Unit 6, which is optics, and Unit 7, which is all the modern physics stuff. Like relativity, quantum mechanics, radioactive decay, that kind of stuff, they're being dropped from it. AP Physics 2, I mean, I don't like optics as a huge fan. I'm not a huge optics person, so I think the test got a little bit easier, but still pretty thorough and detailed. Physics C, for mechanics 6 through 7, and then 4 through 5 for E&M. So for mechanics, they're dropping oscillations and gravitations. And then for C, they're dropping the last two units, magnetic fields and electromagnetism. I think that's a huge change for both of these. For the electricity and magnetism, because they're basically saying, hey, you're just taking an electricity exam now, not a magnetism exam. Okay, so you're just doing all the electrostatic stuff. Whereas mechanics, I think the mechanics is still going to be pretty hard because it includes rotation. Oscillation, gravitation, those are generally somewhat easier units, so I think the mechanics exam is about the same, maybe a little bit harder than it was before. And finally, AP Statistics, they're dropping units 8 and 9. 8 and 9 are knowing the chi-squared and in analyzing slopes. No, this is not linear regression. Linear regression is in Unit 2, I think. This is like when you do any of the testing against the slope for regression, any hypothesis testing against the slope. Always usually been a small part of the exam anyway, as well as the chi-squared stuff. That one's pretty big. Chi-squared is kind of a separate analysis, and knowing the difference between homogeneity and goodness of fit and test for independence is kind of a useful thing. So that's the good news part. They're cutting out some material that will make your studying and preparation a little bit easier. The harder part is, who knows what this 45-minute thing is? Maybe it's a few free response questions that are separate. Maybe it's one massive free response question of interconnected topics. I tend to think it'll be a multiple question ones of a few things, but yeah. Let me know how you guys feel about this change, or what you guys are worried about, and what you're concerned about. I'll try to maybe I can make some content or videos that help you prepare more than what I already have, but I would love your feedback in the comments below. Thanks.